Thank you very much, Laura. Wonderful job also. And welcome everyone to the EU LCS post-game lobby after our final day of the spring split. I'm Sjokz, joined by Amazing and Deficio. This is going to be our last post-game lobby of the regular season. It's been quite a day. A lot has happened, guys.
Now we tie in predictions.
Yeah, what do you say about that?
So just to rehash, I asked the guys beforehand the tiebreaker, since Deficio was one game ahead of Amazing in the official caster predictions that you can check on Twitter. They both chose another team, and because of the G2 winning, the team that Amazing chose, now you're actually, so you could say, oh, those were not the rules, I won the predictions, but I don't think you're gonna do that, are you?
I accept that me and Amazing are equally fantastic at predicting the ones. The important thing, as I said before the game, is the fact that the third analyst will not mention his name.
Wait, what's... Yeah.
I don't think his name is relevant here, but the third guy was really far behind. He was like down at the bottom, second last or something.
You know, at this point, like, you must question his color casting abilities, you know?
Yeah, well, let's move on, because what is really important here is what actually happened on the Rift and where our teams ended up after 9 weeks of play and one extra tiebreaker game. So, Fnatic, number one, that was, well, visible for a couple of weeks already. Yep. That didn't change. Now, G2 Esports managed to edge out Splice and is locked in that second place and has the bye. And locked out of playoffs are FC Schalke 04, Misfits Gaming, Giants, and the Unicorns of Love. Now, we were talking a lot about playoffs in general, so I would like to take this moment to kind of wrap up the teams that fell out of playoffs. Where would you like to start, Martin?
Ooh, Misfits Gaming. Biggest surprise of the split, I feel like.
Biggest disappointment?
Biggest disappointment, biggest surprise, best of one. They, in my opinion, completely failed to adapt to the limitations of the team on stage. Because one thing is in scrims, you know, you can be as great as you want, but if you go on stage every time and you play differently, maybe just to lock the playoffs, you gotta then change how you're practicing and what you're doing on stage. Here I'm talking about less putting yourself on a timer, a little bit easier comes to play like some of the other teams succeeded with. So I think Misfits, from Worlds to this, keeping Maxwell, Fari, Hansama, so great core, keeping Hussein Moosvi as well. You need to be able to make playoffs. They did not. And I think before the season, everyone had them as a playoff team. Yep. So that's obviously the biggest surprise.
Not a number one team, but I don't think anyone put them outside of playoffs.
Oh, no, no.
I definitely didn't. Like, for me, it was always like, I always actually thought that Maxwell, as a jungler himself, with the worst experience that he had and with the shotgun experience that he gained, would have been able to carry that team, like, at least to playoffs. You know, like, I don't know how high, but I'm just disappointed in the fact that they didn't understand that sometimes you just cannot replicate the success from last year. And I think, I mean, obviously I've been in the same shoes with Origin, where like we had a different player coming in, like Paul of Evil, and compared to Peke, and I had to change my playstyle. And I, for example, failed that too until a long time into the playoffs. And I think Maxlore has the same issue with Sjokz now, where I think Maxlore still thinks that he can play carry junglers, but Sjokz can't deal with that at all and whatsoever. So you have to change your playstyle a bit and actually help your team win. And I think that's what Misfits, at least the core members, were not able to do.
Well, I saw Hussein tweeting kind of, oh, it's my fault, or he takes a lot on himself, because I also feel like, you know, it is kind of also a coach decision then, right? And pick some bands, he should then put his foot down and say, no, this is the way we should play.
It was just interesting to see how I think Misfits came in with the mindset that they would make playoffs, so they should keep playing what they consider the correct way for the entire split. And it makes a lot of sense. If you then make playoff, you might have a head start when it comes to playing best of fives. That's where they've in the past done really well, because they prepare super well for teams with Hussein and the coaching staff. But the fact that then week in and week out, kind of the same issues showed, other teams picked up a lot of early wins by literally saying, nope, for us, it's going to be late game comms where we just want to get as much scaling as possible because we don't think teams can close out games, and then we have good carries. Could have been an option for Misfits. They didn't go for it. In the end, it backfires. And now they have a very long holiday before summer split.
They do. I don't want to go too far into what should happen in this and that. It's all up to Misfits themselves and the support staff to see what kind of next steps they want to take. I do want to talk about the other teams as well. Giants, because that is a team that we willfully didn't talk about the last couple of weeks before, because they went in a dip after starting off so strong. And I think in the end, they still showed a lot of good things that we didn't expect from them over the entire split, and that they fall just out of playoffs. Sadly, that game versus Splice, it was very much their own fault. It seemed to me like today, they just lacked that final spark to come into that game and put some fight up. And I think maybe it was just too early for that lineup, or the other teams were simply stronger.
I think they're, like, no offense to Giants, but I think they were just the worst team in the EU LCS. they picked up a ton of wins in the start, which they should get credit for.
Yeah.
Because they actually came in and said, we know exactly how we want to play on stage. We know what kind of drafts are good for us. We know we can trust in someone like Betsy or Ruin, who had a great start. But all those wins is actually what allowed them to still be in the race for playoff towards the end. Because we said this already. They only won 2 games after the first couple of weeks ended, where they were 5-3.
Yep.
2 games only remaining like 4 to 5 weeks. Obviously puts you as the weakest team of all of them. We also got to see that here towards the end, where they obviously got completely crushed. So I think they can overall be happy with what they showed in the start, but they would be very unhappy with not being able to actually progress from there.
Anything to add to that, Maurice?
Yeah, just like you can teach an old dog new tricks, and I think we saw that in the beginning of the split where they actually looked rejuvenated, but at some point age is going to catch up to you, if that makes sense. So for them, like the spark that they had in the beginning of the split, they couldn't translate at all because at some point that fire went away. Like you didn't see like Betsy carrying anymore. I don't know if he was carrying, that's something different, but like he definitely didn't look as good as he did in the beginning of the split, and Joko couldn't make the difference anymore.
Also, Ruin, who we talked about non-stop the first couple of weeks.
Yeah. I mean, he came in and he won his lane a few times. They actually played around him, but we have to remember the meta in the very start of the split was super late game. No one could finish games. We were casting for 65 minutes. So if you drafted the superior late game comp, you could often get there and you could then try and win games that way. They tried to change it, play more aggressive comps, backfired every time. And they just couldn't adapt when the metas did, and that's why they ended up.
And it also became a very intense battle, right? We can't forget that it was blood, sweat, and tears for anyone to get to playoffs in the situation that they were in. So we'll see what they can build on, rather, going into summer. 2 more teams that we need to touch on, and I know it won't be easy to keep it short, but Schalke 04. We've talked about it a lot. Obviously, the big football project coming in, star-studded roster, fantastic environment, fantastic players on paper. Sparks of brilliance last week, namely, but in the most important moments, they didn't show up.
I think it's what Thunder talked about in this interview, kind of. I think when the roster came together, like a lot of people thought of them as like a playoff team, or like a good team, maybe even like top 4, whatever it is. And for me, like I thought maybe they're going to be a low playoff team, but because the issue for them, it's simply this: none of the players has shown any indication in the past to actually be able to step up to the occasion in terms of shot calling, in terms of leadership. Chachi is the only one that comes close, but a top laner cannot shot call for the team. There's no way in this today's meta that a top laner can have any kind of impact in that way. So for me, you need to have the jungler or support actually be the forces to carry that roster to a higher level. I think can't put that pressure on Pride. I think obviously can't necessarily put that pressure only on Thunder, but the combination of the two failed the team.
Sorry to jump in, but aside from shot calling and what happens in the game, someone like Vizicachi, I had definitely expected more from. And you can never tell if, just the team didn't gel, so he wasn't able to do what he wanted to do. But that is the kind of guy that I was looking at in the past, seeing his history to step up, take over those lanes, take over those games. Nukeduck, we only ever saw it in the first. We talked about the year of Nukeduck, but it didn't really come back. And you can never know what that is, but you have to assume it's because the synergy as a whole wasn't there.
I mean, one thing is synergy. Another thing was how they approached the game. Like Vizicachi got to play Camille twice this split, and then effectively just tanks. There were a total game or 2, but otherwise just a bunch of tanks. So obviously the Chachi from Unicorns of Love, we won't get to see. And that kind of took him out of what was his former playstyle, and then puts a lot of the carry pressure on other members. And that's where they faltered. They lost a lot of dumb games, which is going to hurt them a lot. But what's super interesting about both Schalke and Misfits not making it is every time we talk to teams coming into weeks about who's doing well in practice and whatever, Misfits and Schalke were highlighted
Scrim
each
gods.
single time, especially Schalke. The amount of praise I've heard for this team, how they could just play cleanly, beat teams 5-0 in scrims, and then they walk on stage and no one on the same on this stage can then take what they actually do in scrims. Can be nerves, it can be lack of leadership, it can be playing more passive, whatever it is. And it just falls apart. It's so interesting how some teams just cannot copy scrims to stage.
So, this is like a theory of mine at least. But from what obviously when I played on Origin, I had so many scrims that I lost, simply because we're still trying to learn. And I feel like that a lot of teams right now are trying to play too perfect in scrims, if that makes sense. Always basically base it upon try to figure out what their game plan is supposed to be for the first 15-20 minutes. And they basically pre-plan all of that. And if one thing of those things goes wrong within the first 15-20 minutes, the answer's not there anymore because they haven't practiced it necessarily. So the reactive play that you basically reading your open is something they don't necessarily practice. And I think teams like that have a lot of veteran leadership are the teams that are going to succeed in that kind of manner. Where, for example, So is someone that can always read the game because he's seen so much, and he also lays back in scrims. Like, okay, whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to learn out of it.
Yeah, and it was also interesting because now we talk about the scrims and these kind of things like Vander and Nukdog coming over together as a duo from Vitality last year. Heard good things about Vitality in practice last year as well. Never performed on stage. Passive, couldn't carry, bad shot calling. Same duo moves over to Schalke now. And I'm not calling them out, just them specifically, but we are seeing quite a historic trend here where it's not translating on the big stage when it's supposed to. And a lot of the Schalke haters will jump out now and say, we knew these names wouldn't be able to do it, obviously, based on what they did beforehand. And it really hurts the track record of players like Nukdog and Vander that this now happens again, where they're not able to make playoffs in what I consider a much stronger team than Vitality last year.
We can only follow up. I still like this team very much and all the surroundings and everything that they put on the map. So we can only hope that they turn it around and it becomes a good evolution in summer.
You want them to succeed.
Yeah,
like,
you want
honestly,
them to succeed.
because
It's just the way to put it.
Just the whole project of it just makes so much sense, and I think it should be like something basically transcending Europe, because I don't want teams to get away with having like low budget,
bad
bad infrastructure, because it hurts the players, it hurts the viewership ultimately, because like you're gonna have bad teams that are gonna fall through at some point. So I want good infrastructure, good teams to actually succeed, and it hurts to see Schalke. It would be the same for Fnatic, to be fair, if they would suddenly fail.
Sure. I want to give a lot of praise to a lot of the organizations who are actually bringing a lot more people on to help. Like, there's a lot of the guys who are sitting backstage when they're watching, and it used to be one guy. There was a coach sitting there, and that was it, nothing else. Now we're seeing like 3 to 4 people on almost every single team. Like, there's a manager, a sports psychologist, there's 2 coaches, or whatever it is. And that is really good to see from a lot of them. And of course, Schalke tried to do the same, but it didn't work for them.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. And one of those teams that always had their players very well surrounded is the Unicorns of Love, a team with a very big history in the European LCS. Falling outside of playoffs, I got a chance to talk to Sheepy and UL Dad, obviously the owner, just outside before. And he said kind of, well, you know what? It would have been hard to turn it around. And we kind of knew with the start we had that it was going to be incredibly, incredibly difficult. So although we're very disappointed, we have to be proud of that 5-game winning streak and kind of what we managed to do with the players we had and with the team we had.
Yeah, I think looking at all the rosters coming into the split, I didn't expect Unicorns to be a top team, but I thought, the lower end of the middle is kind of where they would play. So fight for number 6 in playoffs, maybe be number 7. I thought there were other rosters who were weaker on paper, but obviously with the 1-8 start, they showed they were initially one of the weakest, and they did not make roster changes, which H2K did. And H2K are now in playoffs. So they gambled on some new names, and that actually worked for them. And Unicorns kept the core, which I don't blame them for.
No.
But it meant that they couldn't get back.
So for them, it made sense to not make roster changes, obviously, because of the fact that they had brought a core from last year, whereas H2K basically had to completely revamp roster. It was like completely different. So they had a lot of tools to play with anyway, and then it didn't fit, so you exchanged them. But yeah, like it's kind of sad to see, like, because obviously from my perspective at least, like it feels like the whole organization or like the whole players always bleed with the team, and them to actually like falter in that kind of manner, because they could have won yesterday, they could have actually like gotten to a point where they had playoff contention. Hurts to see, but someone's got to lose, I suppose.
Yeah, someone's got to lose, and these are the 4 teams, unfortunately, that fall out of contention. We will see in summer in whatever configuration that may be.
No promo tournament. They're still here
no
for
promotion
Sunday.
tournament. So, well, Joko said it would be not cool to just sit kind of on your butt these couple of months and see the other teams playing, and that is the truth. But we hope we see them back.
He deserved playoffs.
Yeah, I think we are of the opinion like we don't want anyone to lose in essence, right? But we do want the best teams and the best possible playoffs to happen, and that's what I want to talk about now, because we're going to get started with the road to the final next Friday, and I want to challenge you guys about the playoffs. So we're going to take a look at the playoff picture, I believe. Oh no, it is there.
There it comes.
So these are the options. So quarterfinal 1. Splice Rocket.
Splice Rocket. You want to talk about it specifically?
No, first I want to introduce. So quarterfinal 1, Splice Rocket. Quarterfinal 2, Vitality H2K. And then possible semifinals, G2 versus one of the others. So what is like the first thought if you see this schedule?
I think Splice is should destroy Rocket.
I mean, it's not gonna be like 3-0 after 3-1.
I don't know if you just swore or if you just say sh. Oh, you said should. Sorry.
Should. I didn't. You know, I'm clean now. You know, after the
after you
F-bomb,
drop
I'm
one,
fine.
it's
You know,
okay.
but
My
like,
bad.
I think Splash should destroy Rocket. Like, they maximum should drop one game because I do think that they basically play similarly but on a higher level. If that makes sense. Whereas the Vitality HK matchup is actually a matchup I'm looking for.
So before we continue, I had a little bit of a challenge for you guys. We can pick these back up, and I think we'll pick these thoughts back up right now because I want to do a bit of a 1v1 me, bro. Out of the quarterfinal teams,
I stand
think
up
you
for
can
Reese.
take-
This is coming
Stand
in, coming in.
out of the, well, you can stand up if you want.
Yeah, I was gonna fight him.
Out of the quarterfinal teams, so you can't pick G2 or Fnatic, I want you to defend one team that you think will make it to finals for the sake of the argument.
Okay.
And you have 1 minute to do so.
Yeah, you can start.
Timer is going to come in just a second. You can decide who wants to start. The superiorist analyst.
Well, we are tied, but
Yeah, you
the
are
regular
tied.
season one.
The regular season
see,
one.
I actually, it could be fun to be spicy and pick H2K, because I think they're a little bit of a dark horse in this race.
Yeah.
Problem for them is they come in as the 5th seed, which means if Splice win their quarterfinal, H2K will face Fnatic in the semifinals. So that
So-
obviously hurts the chances.
Who do you pick?
I pick Splice,
Splice.
which I think then is,
All right.
for me, the easy one.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then I will count you in. You have 1 minute to tell me why
Am I looking at
Splice
that one?
will be in the finals.
Or am I looking in the
I
eyes?
think you are in this one. We'll see. All right, Splice, why will they be in the finals? Deficio, 3, 2, 1.
Splice will be in the finals because I have full trust in a very large coaching staff to actually prepare for a best of 5 properly. I think Splice also have shown over multiple weeks now that they actually do have a lot of different carries on this team around topside, in the jungle and bot lane. I think today's game against G2 Esports, they showed some weakness in team fights, but that's not something we've seen very often. That's going to get fixed. They can rely on the macro as well that they can bring to the table. So overall, I just like the well-roundedness now that multiple members are stepping up, and I like the fact they bring a lot of smart people to actually prepare for the best of 5.
All right, I actually am starting to think that 60 seconds is too much because you only need. It is really long. It's not really a challenge.
Logo. That's pretty cool.
More of these
You're
random
really,
things, please.
convincing
They're also
right now.
playing in yellow and in the Tour de France. If you guys watch professional cycling, the yellow jersey
It's really
is
good.
basically the one who wins, aka
Yeah, but like
Denmark.
Splice will win.
Yeah. So
Whatever.
I thought those were pretty good arguments. Is there any?
Especially the last one.
Is there
No.
any big holes in these arguments that you see that you want to talk
mean-
about? Amazing.
I mean, main hole here is that he's bringing the arguments.
That's a certain type of hole. Let's not.
I'll add one myself. I'm slightly concerned about Niski when it comes to playing like traditional carries compared to some of the other mid laners in playoffs.
Well,
like
let's
Perks
look
and
at who they will be
Caps.
facing to get there. He would be facing Blanc then and Perks.
Yeah, so I think especially in the semifinal, that could be like we saw in this game. You know, like Perks had much better game on Azir, and for Niski, I think when he's on the utility ones, he's good. But I think on the straight up carries, he will not be able to, pull this team towards a trophy.
Anything to add, or do you want to go to your?
I'm
60
I'm
seconds?
forced to pick G2 now, you know?
No, you
you're
can't
not.
pick G2. You have to pick one.
A
Rocket, Vitality, or
non-quarterfinal team.
H2K.
Wait, really?
Yes.
What did you tell me backstage? on
Okay, so
Vitality?
no, but I can't do that on
you
camera.
can tell me
No,
why
I
they
can't
make
do
the
it on
final.
camera. It doesn't work because then I jinx it, you know? Like,
So, you don't want to pick the team you want to do well.
You can just tell me why they can make the final.
okay.
Who do you pick? Amazing.
I'll pick Vitality.
All right.
Look me in the eyes.
Are you
And it's
ready?
but it's gonna be tough because they're face Fnatic, you know? Like, but yeah, I'm going.
All right.
I'm going. Let's go.
3, 2, 1. Maurice is going for Vitality. Let's go.
So Vitality do have the ability to actually play a lot of styles. I think they're really familiar with the normal meta, which means that they can actually play on the level as Splice can, and can actually like play that style too. You know, where they control through the bot side and basically like have those plays come in. While doing that, they can also split up and basically just like have their support on a carry champion like Thresh to a certain extent, have the mid lane and mix it up a bit and basically carry solo and stop looking me in the eye. But the main point for me is that I do think that Splice, in comparison to Vitality, for example, is too standard for their own good. So what I mean by that is that Vitality has the ability to actually bring in X factors and carries that haven't stepped up before. And some game, Mr. Gillies would step up and get an early gank. In another game, Jack Trolls would hit 15 hooks in a row and carry the game through that. So I don't think that on an individual level, Splice, in comparison to Vitality, will have the same ability to do so.
All right. That's an interesting point
only
of
agree
view.
with Jizuke on that one
Yeah?
specifically. I don't see many true packs with Jack Troll have more impact than Kobe or Kasing could have. Specifically, I agree with Jizuke. I think that's where they have the X factor that we can talk
I mean,
about.
I was forced to pick Vitality, you know?
I know, I'm not blaming
It's like
you.
the
I'm not
rest is
blaming you.
just...
So-
You made
the
a
rest is
fine
doomed.
argument.
The rest is
My
doomed.
biggest concern with Vitality is I feel like, especially against the top teams,
Dark Horse.
every game's becomes super messy. It's not like, they get an early lead, clean. It's just like crazy, bam, 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 bam. Maybe they
But-
win, maybe not. And like that to me just shows like
But
a
is it better?
lack of.
Is it better for them or for the enemies? Because I actually make this argument that Vitality, if they just fix their macro issues,
But I
that
don't
they
think they
would
can.
be able to beat those teams handily, and they would have beaten Fnatic 2-0, for example.
I agree. If you play the perfect game, you win most of them. I don't think they can fix that, especially not just in a week.
I guess I have to declare the winner, but I can't. So we'll just
No.
see in the who gets into the final who's the winner of this particular
Well, what
argument.
if these two teams make the final
Well-
instead? You're Fnatic.
Yeah, that's true. Just before we move on about the quarterfinal teams and predictions, we have very big dark horse matchups in this one. Rocket is a huge underdog coming in versus Splice, and H2K is also a huge underdog, be it maybe a
Actually, I
bit
don't
less
think-
versus Vitality. Agreed or
Yeah.
not?
I actually don't think that HK is an underdog against Vitality. I think this matchup is really scary for Vitality, because I think that's the matchup in itself is interesting because they play, I don't want to say similarly, but they have the same kind of like strengths, if that makes sense. You know, where they can be just unpredictable, where they bring in things that you haven't seen before, and like a lot of aggression in the early game, suddenly ganks that you shouldn't necessarily go for because the pathing is just off, you know, whatever it is. So I think in terms of riskiness in early game, they match up really well.
The thing I like about that specific matchup for H2K is the fact that, as I said before, I don't think Vitality will very cleanly be able to close out games, even if even with early leads. I feel like H2K will always get to late game fights, and outside of that game yesterday, where they actually won the early game, that's still the main way for them to win because Sheriff is playing out of his mind.
Unreal.
at
Rookie of the split for
moment.
you?
I think at this point with them, this surge and him being the sole carry, like as much as I want to give this to Jizuke based on the entire split, it is really hard not to put Sheriff on that vote.
It is very interesting. So we can talk about this forever and ever. Quick lightning round. Who wins the EU LCS spring split?
Fnatic is the easy one.
I mean, now you can
Okay,
say it. Why.
I go out on a limb here and say the winner of Vitality and HK is actually going to make it to finals, but I think G2 is going to win.
Ooh, why do you have faith in G2 growing? Because they're not at that level now.
I don't, but like I don't know. For some reason, Fnatic, they're this team that looks great every split, and then suddenly do something in the semis, like at least like this iteration of the roster, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Like that they can't adapt to the opponent, and someone has prepared for them.
I think last year they had a coaching problem. I think this year Youngbuck has fixed that for them, which is going to be a giant change. We've already seen them play way more consistent now, which is going to be big for them in playoffs. I also think the fact that, one, there's no Sven and Mythi, which is in the past
Pretty
been
good
one of
for
Fnatic's
every
players.
other team.
And there is no Misfits in this playoff, which was their team last split, who identified how to beat Fnatic, destroyed them in the semifinal. Reckless said yesterday he was scared of them. They're not there. So I think Fnatic will have the advantage in terms of infrastructure.
should have the advantage,
And they
yeah.
just have, they have the two best carries in the league at the moment. Plus, they're not playing dumb League of Legends. They're actually playing really smart.
And as opposed to any other team in the league, in the EU LCS and in the playoffs at least, they could swap in a sub and have a new strategy, possibly?
I don't
Is
think
that a thing or
I don't
not?
think it matters too much actually.
No, okay.
I think that
Top lane especially at the moment.
Yeah.
All right, I take it back.
that- no, but I mean,
Swap
you
in
know,
80 carry.
you know,
Yeah.
in an ideal world, in a
Weibo
no-
is actually a better AD carry than Reckless. Who knows?
if we just go, I'll just ignore that statement. If we just go by the stats and we go by what's safe, Fnatic should win. There's no contest about
They're
that.
the favorites for sure.
Yeah.
It is by no means locked though, and I think our final is not going to be 3-0.
And
Yeah.
what is exciting is that you can only think because of how exciting the regular season has been and how up and down it's been for any team. Hopefully this will also be reflected in the playoffs, but we'll have to see. But after our final week, we are also going to take a look at some of the LCS big plays. There's been a lot of them. And on Twitter, you sent us in your favorites. Here they are, brought to you by Acer Predator. First up, we were just talking about him. Fnatic's Reckless. He had a great year so far, but he is still looking to secure his first pentakill of the split. Not there yet. He came very close in their game yesterday against Giants, but in the end, it just wasn't enough.
Look at the damage.
Cataclysm comes out as well, and Boxer and Reckless just go unstoppable there. Fnatic are going to try and chase on towards the rest of Giants. The double knockback with the never move, the knockup of Caps. Guipo coming in for the side as well. There's just nothing you can do. There's the triple kill. Reckless gets the quadra, going for the penta. What a way to cap it up. But no! Steelback stops him in his track.
No! Fuck my...
No.
That's all I've got, that's all I've got.
Is that dead? Nice.
Yeah, wait, end.
Yeah,
I'm going
I'm tipping behind them. I'm tipping behind.
Oh shit,
Yeah, feathers. Chocolate.
I'm on one.
Penta.
I'm gonna shield.
No!
Fuck my...
No!
I can't believe that Caps is such a little... I'm gonna steal it. A funny thing, we had Reckless as a guest on the post-game lobby, and he said, you know, I didn't get that penta. I didn't get one since 2015. That's also the last time that we were competitive for the championship. So I feel like this is the moment I should get my penta. And
Maybe that was a sign. He lost the penta. He's gonna lose the semifinal. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
No,
Also,
but
Steelback was the one
that's
who just denied that penta from him.
Interesting.
That's
X-Files
petty
music
revenge
here,
right
yeah.
there.
Alrighty,
Get you
next
back.
up. Earlier today, the Romanian duo Odoamne and Sjokz, they pulled off a big turnaround in the top lane versus Giants. At Aaron is a hippo. Said it right. Odoamne is a monster this game.
2 additional TPs actually. Niski can TP, Carson can TP. There should be no counterplay, but a TP behind them right now.
All right, this is going to be Ruin coming to the fight. Odoamne goes golden thanks to the stopwatch. Let's bounce this used. Wow, Odoamne even takes down Joko. Now Ruin's in trouble because Niski's joined the fight. Odo gets the lifesteal and survives. That's a double kill for Odoamne.
Do you think we can watch her actually?
I have stopwatch. I mean, we can force fight if you want.
Guys, I'm top first. I'm first top. I am first top.
Focus cannon. Okay, I've got W.
No play this guy.
15 seconds.
I got his barrel. I'm gonna tank tower. Just kill him.
Top it up.
Nice. Top.
Guys, if this... Okay.
I mean, I don't think we have to fight, but... You guys have to be 2-1.
Guys, you guys do not have to...
I like that the bot lane is like, maybe we're fighting. Who knows? Don't think we have to fight. We're on top lane. It's just like, yeah, we're just
Oh,
gonna...
that's tower.
Just gonna 2v2 them right there.
Good
no
stuff.
one cares.
Good stuff from Odoamne. Nice when he is on fire, he's really on fire.
He's been
Unfortunately,
really good the last few
he has
weeks.
been really good the last couple of weeks. Excited to see what he can bring in the playoffs. And then in our final game of the regular season, G2 and Splyce, they battled it out for the second place. And G2 managed to secure it after winning a game-changing Baron fight 21 minutes into the game.
They're aware Winter's Bite will tag onto Perk. Teleport starts to get channeled. Baron's low, 2,500. There's already in the pit. The challenge is there. Unstoppable. It's not being used yet. Baron's stolen. No, it's secured by G2. But in the ensuing fight, Wonder is trying to lock down Kobe. Kobe's getting pulled away. All of a sudden, Sjokz is already down. No, Odo, first to run for his life. G2 Esports send their regards. Get themselves a double kill. Get themselves a Baron. And they're getting themselves more kills.
Yeah, go.
Okay, I'll go then.
Stop. I will sack.
Okay, go.
Okay,
back.
Just wait.
Kazak. Nice. Got it. Zack.
Stun on no jump. I have E5. Just stun on the side here. Yeah.
Good job. I can open the stun now. I Predator, I chase. I can heal you.
Luck or skill?
Skill. With a tiny bit of luck.
I mean, with more skill, more luck comes, you know. That's how it works.
There we go.
There we go. Well, let's take a look at what's coming up starting off with our first quarterfinal next week. Splyce versus Roccat. That will be played on Friday. And then on Saturday, we'll have Vitality versus H2K. Everything from now on is best of fives. Both the quarterfinals and the semifinals will be played on Friday and Saturday from right here in Berlin. And then the finals and the third place decider will be played on Saturday, the 7th of April, and Sunday, the 8th of April from Copenhagen. You can still get your tickets for that on eu.lesports.com. That's it. Quick prediction, Splyce or Roccat?
Splyce.
Nobody wants to put their hand in the fire for Roccat. And Vitality or H2K?
Oh god.
Oh, a difficult one.
I don't know.
I'm
going Vitality, but I'm gonna research it.
Yeah.
Whatever I say now doesn't count.
What? Okay, Vitality too. It doesn't count either. Like, what kind of prediction is that?
But I haven't even gotten back to look at the teams and think about BO5s.
Okay, yeah.
Also, I like the way you guys say Copenhagen when you speak English. You always go Copenhagen.
Yes, I think it's because we want to make it a mix between the English version, but then the right
But the
version, which
Danish
is
version is
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen.
So we mix it into
Yeah, but that...
Copenhagen.
You make your own little
Copenhagen.
word.
Our little mixture.
Because the other guys did it as well.
Copenhagen. It's weird.
Copenhagen or
Yes.
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen. It's like it's like Copenhagen.
Also, I'm from the farmer side, so I say it a little bit different than the actual people from.
So what did
Okie
the
doke.
actual people say?
I don't know, they're probably like Copenhagen, and I'm like Copenhagen.
Alrighty, well, we can talk about
There
this
you go.
forever, but I prefer not to. Thank you guys.
I think that's how they say it.
That's
I
no
don't
point.
speak their
That's no
language
point.
over there.
Well, thank you guys very much for joining me. It's been one hell of a ride. It's been 9 weeks. It's been some exciting rookies, some unexpected performances, and honestly, more upsets than we can count. It has been one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting, regular season spring split from the EU LCS that we have ever had. And I think we can all agree that this will make the playoffs just as, if not more, exciting. We will be back in a week to check those out and to, well, get further on the road to Copenhagen. It's been a blast so far, and there's more coming. We'll see you Friday for our first quarterfinal in the EU LCS. Good night.
Now Ruin's in trouble because Niski's joined the fight. Oh no, gets the lifesteal and survives. And Splice, decimate, deconstruct, obliterate, and destroy Giants. Another Unstoppable comes down. Look at the damage on the rocket line. They're getting wrecked. Sheriff gets excited. He's got one. That's a second.
I mean,
The battery-empowered CP is still doing work. The Nexus goes down. H2K are going to playoffs.
Wants to get out. That's running for his life. Rescue point, Glover treating Maxwell's right there. He's going to get him immediately. Goodbye, baby. Splinter Cell on the backside. And Misfits, so many blinking red health bars. Oh, Max Lord. Where was this Kha'Zix? What a way to end the season. Beautiful performance coming in for Misfits. Maybe just going to get caught out here. If Jackal goes down, this could be huge. Perks is there. They burn so many ultis, but they take down the Tom Kench. Vinny Tupac has been knocked up. Wonder is here. Jarnan is legendary. Yankos comes over. Savior of G2 as he manages to bring it in.
So important for G2 Esports. Rough ending to the split. It is not often you can push for the second tower. Let's see.
Double Six comes in immediately, going to try to use the ultimate, but Upset could be in trouble. Flash out, just not able to make it. There's the stun. Does manage to cleanse and tries to walk away, but the chain CC is too much. The point, the click, Reckless leaps in. He's going to leap right back out in a moment. Gets the reset, walks it home. Chachi goes over the wall, does use the cats. Immediately leaps to the team. Demonic Ascension, Reckless untouched on the backside. Now looking for the reset. Tar going to try to buy a bit of time with the Radiance. May not be enough, however, so as there to zone the team away from Reckless. This is your first place team, Europe. This is your reminder why.
Xerxes charging up the slingshot, jumps in, interrupts the hook shot, pulls Wonder backwards, and Splice gets first blood. The challenge is there, unstoppable, it's not being reset. Barrett's stolen, no, it's secured by G2, but in the ensuing fight, Wonder is trying to lock down Kobe. Kobe's getting pulled away. All of a sudden, Xerxes already down. No Odo, first to run for his life. G2 Esports send their regards. G2 Esports, the defending champions, take down Splice, guarantee themselves a spot in the Copenhagens, and they're going to semi-finals.